to Lagos. I'll take you to Lagos.
Is Doseke facing you guys?
I don't think he can see you.
Hello, Lagos. My name is Nata, and I am back. It's still What's Up, Lagos, and it is time for Power Solutions. We have Dr. Wiebe with us in the studio already, and I think he looks fabulous. I actually really love your outfit today.
Well, I'm wearing a suit for the first time in like 9 months.
First time?
No, in 9 months.
Okay.
So but I just have to say it's a Nigerian-made suit.
Is it?
Yeah,
Oh, it
so
looks really good.
this is from our lovely Nigerian tailors. So
It's really good. It's good to have you in the studio today.
So, but I have a question. Why are you playing the Arsenal match? You're trying to ruin my attitude.
I heard about that.
No,
I'm
no, no,
so
but-
sorry,
Yeah.
Arsenal fans.
Can we change the channel?
I heard it's such a hard time for you guys. So apologies. I'm so sorry. I heard the game was really messy yesterday.
I don't want to talk about it, but if you can please ask them to change the channel because I
That
just won't
no,
be able to
we're going to
focus.
watch this one. So Lagos, welcome once again. It is time for Power Solutions. Dr. Wiebe is with us in the studio, and I'm going to let him introduce the guest.
Right.
I'm going to let him do that himself.
Okay.
So
All
let's
right.
go.
Good. Okay, so this morning we have an international set. We actually have two guests. So Doseke is in the studio with us. I hope they can see her also. And then Dan is joining us from Dakar, Senegal. So it's Dan and Doseke. It kind of sounds like sounds like a band.
Right?
That sounds like a band.
Yeah.
Dan and Doseke
Doseke.
and Dakar. So yeah, it's very alliterative.
Great.
But so Dan is the CEO of Oolu Solar, and then Doseke is the Nigeria CEO of Oolu Solar.
Oh.
And they're one of the fast-growing, amazing solar companies all over West Africa, and they have a big announcement to make today. So,
Fantastic.
so we're going to be getting to know them, their company, and then talking about what's going on.
Beautiful. It's good to have you join us on the show today. So there's something I always do for my guests, my shakara. So let me quickly do that.
But we're going to raise the bar on that later when we make the announcement.
Oh yeah?
We're gonna go
awesome.
louder than this. Louder.
Great.
Okay.
So let's get
Alright.
into the conversation today. My first question for Doseke. When I was doing this, I was very careful how to pronounce your name. I thought it was Doseke.
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 Oh, I
What,
probably mispronounced
what does
it.
that
I'm sorry.
mean? Let's start from there.
Okay, so
Doseke.
Doseke means it's a name from a place called Ila, and it's a Delta Igbo name,
Okay.
and it means who was there when God was deciding what your destiny will be.
Ooh, that is a deep one.
Wow,
Who
I
was
think
there?
that should Dan. I think that should actually be the brand name for Oolu. I think you should change the name.
to Doseke.
Yeah,
It's not too late.
Doseke Solar. I think that sounds cool.
That's really
Yeah.
beautiful, really
Yeah.
beautiful. But let's start off with you, Doseke.
Okay.
Tell us briefly about your background and your professional career.
So thanks again for having me on. So I started decades ago as a computer programmer. I know it's hard to imagine that I was sitting behind a computer coding, but that's where I started, and then I quickly realized I didn't want to be a techie. I decided to go into management consulting, and I've spent time over 13 years in management consulting, building companies, teams, and scaling businesses. There's just something about a startup company, about growing a business that I find exciting. I like the fact that you're taking something that is not structured and you're trying to bring some kind of structure into it. So that's what I've done. My entrance into this space, I can't talk about my entrance into the renewable energy space without talking about a lady called Oolu Solar, who is the MD of Latima Energy. She was actually the one that connected me to Oolu when they're looking to come into Nigeria, and I was like, oh, really? There's actually a renewable energy space. They do social impact. What's that?
I thought I recruited you.
You did. So it was just an opportunity. It sounded interesting. I didn't understand the space, and I was like, yeah, I want to know. I want to get to know about it. But essentially, it's the experience of being able to build companies, businesses, work with CEOs and founders to essentially scale those businesses and actualize their vision is what got me here.
Beautiful.
So Dan, let's jump to you now. So in addition to kind of your own story, but also just tell us about, a lot of solar companies, have been started in East Africa, India, but I think yours might be the only one started in Senegal, at least the one that's expanded as much as yours. So what's the journey? What's the story? Why Senegal as where you started from? And then where are you guys now?
Mm-hmm. Sure, and thanks for having us. So I'm American. I'm from Boston, Massachusetts. I studied international development and economics at American University in Washington, D.C. And I worked for Washington doing government affairs on energy policy. But I always wanted to work in a domain like renewable energy, social impact. I wanted to work internationally. And so in 2014, I met a woman named Nilmi Senaratne who I co-founded ULU with, and she had done an agricultural improvement project in a region in central Senegal in 2012. She lived in this community for a year. While she was there, she tutored children, primarily just using the flashlight of cell phones and flashlights, whatever was available. And there, she kind of understood the challenge associated with energy access for off-grid and low-grid populations in this region in Senegal. So when we started speaking about this experience a few years later, we thought it was the right time to start a project. We had seen already some of the early successes of companies in East Africa and companies and nonprofits in South Asia, and felt that we could bring something similarly impactful to Senegal. So we spent about 6 months living in this rural community in Senegal. After concluding the pilot, we understood that the need was far greater than just these few communities, and launched ULU as a social enterprise with both financial and impact targets.
Right.
And remind us, what does ULU mean? Just so Nigerians may be thinking it's Oolu, like OLU, but it's OOLU, and it means something very special in Wolof, I believe.
That's right. It means trust in Wolof, which is spoken by about 80% of the population here in Senegal. And for us, I mean, one of the biggest points of feedback we got in starting the project was that a lot of households and businesses were attracted by solar, interested by solar, but many of them had very bad experiences with solar in the past. They had purchased a system, and then a few months later, the battery broke, and there was no after sales or anything like that. And so, what we try to do is establish a model providing the best in class after sales quality in the industry, saying to people, look, when you purchase a product of ours, you have a guarantee. If a technical component breaks, we'll replace it free of charge. We'll come to your house. And so I think that's been a really important driver of our growth in the years since.
Right. So Oolu brings to the table, amongst other things, operational expertise and thorough knowledge of the West African market. So how can the company leverage these strengths to bridge the economic gap in Nigeria specifically? So
thank you for that question. Again, our business model in Nigeria is such that for every state, for every LGA, for every ward that we go into, we engage the indigenes within that community.
Okay.
And we believe that this is a strong way of addressing one of the main economic issues we have in Nigeria, which is poverty, which is employment. So through our direct sales force, we engage with the community leaders, we engage with the youths in the community, we employ them as agents, sales reps, and we give them a path of growth within the organization so that they can rise up. Our preferred mode of staff development is to internally promote people. And so when they come into the organization, they can see a path, beyond even where they started from. Another way that we're able to bridge some economic and we're able to address economic gaps, it's through energy access, and the fact that what we're doing allows not just individuals' homes, but micro businesses to be able to run their businesses and earn a living. In fact, during the pandemic, what we noticed was that for customers who really could not afford it, as long as they saw the economic value and benefit of their product, they were earning. They could use it. A barber could use the light to shave, and someone had a salon, could use an inverter to run their salon. Then they were more likely to be able able to continue to use that product. So that's another way that we find that we're able to bridge that economic gap. A lot of our
Brilliant.
products are targeted at people at the bottom of the pyramid, people who are off grid.
Okay.
So we're also meeting that power energy gap as well.
Great.
And we also have resellers.
Okay.
And again, so it's about creating economic empowerment across, our own distribution value chain as a business.
Great.
Is one way.
So let me ask you this, woman to woman. Your company profile states that you have 250 full-time employees.
Yes.
What percentage of management level and above are women?
That's a fantastic question. And everyone that I meet always asks me that question because I'm a female.
Right.
But at Oolu, we go beyond tracking management and leadership people numbers, not because it's not important, because decisions are taken at that level.
Right.
But we use a systemic view in ensuring that there's gender diversity and representation across the company.
Okay.
And so it's evident even in terms of 50% of our co-founders are women, 31%
Brilliant.
of the company is directly on the board. 50% of our senior management staff are women. 50% of our country managers in Oolu, we're in about 6 countries.
Okay.
They are women. 33% of the board are women. 42% of the management cadre in Nigeria are women, and 30% of the sales leadership in Nigeria are women. So it's something that is important to us that we look at to try and address.
So is this intentional?
Yes,
Okay.
it is deliberate, it's intentional. We look at putting in place HR and diversity policies that encourage this, what it is that we want to do in terms of having more women representation.
Space.
A lot of the customers we deal with are women because they're the ones that trade, they're the ones
Yes.
that work late in the markets.
Right.
And they're the ones typically that help their children with their homework.
True.
So it doesn't make sense that you're not represented. They're more likely to, you as a woman, you're more likely to understand and appeal to that
Brilliant.
gender as well.
Brilliant.
So Dan, don't worry, we'll come back to you in a bit, but we have one more sort of gender-related question. So, Doseke, I mean, you're as the CEO of Oolu Nigeria, you're one of the few, although a growing number of women CEOs in this space, leaders in this space. How do you see your role in that way? I mean, do you kind of keep in touch with the other women CEOs? Do you have like a group that you work together to kind of bring more in? What do you feel your role is in this space? Yeah.
So my role is as an individual, but also within Oolu as well. And we have, clear policies that we've also designed within Oolu. I mean, I'll address the question from like the stages. If I look at 3 main stages, in terms of am I part of a group? Yes, I'm part of the Women in Renewable Energy Society. So we're women there trying to encourage ourselves, develop ourselves, and share opportunities and support each other in that. So I'm part of that group. But if I take this problem from early stage, so the girl child is not going to decide to be a leader when they're 30 or 40. That decision is made at about 13. Okay? So at an early stage, what I do is I get involved in my alma mater. I went to a school called Federal Government College, Warri. And so I get involved in going back to the school. So, for example, we set up a scholarship for the best graduating boy or girl, boy and girl, to be able to go to the senior secondary. So I think getting involved in your alma mater, let them see you, let them be visible, so that they can begin to see the path to being a female leader. They can see people that have achieved it and can aspire. We've also been involved as a company in STEM programs. So the Renewable Energy has a STEM program for young girls. We've spoken at those workshops to encourage young girls in there. The second stage I would like to talk about is getting into the workforce. So for a lot of women, sometimes they don't get the opportunity, they don't hear about it. And so what we try and do is that we do job postings specifically in women's societies, in women's groups. In addition to other channels that we look at, we tap into women networks. We partner with foundations. So, for example, there are some foundations that train young engineers. We place them on internships when they finish. So that's one way, encouraging them and creating avenues for them to get into the workforce. And the last one is supporting them in building their careers. Now, this is what we do in Oolu. We have internal gender-sensitive and HR recruitment policies that address the challenges that women normally face, that prevents them or discouraging them from either coming into the workforce or staying long enough in the workforce. So we look at maternity, we look at shorten time when you have children. We look at career development, and we have specific policies. We've committed ourselves to a GAP program, which is a gender action plan, and all this is just to ensure that we have a gender balanced company. So as an individual, it's getting involved in your schools, the primary schools, the secondary schools, making sure you're visible, and then they can see that they have a path to being a female leader, but also supporting other foundations that dedicate 100% of their time, and partnering with women networks to get jobs. So those are the things I do as an individual, and we do as ULU as a company.
Right. Now over to you, Dan. We have just limited time to go. Tell us on a high level what the $8.5 million Series B investment deal signed today would do for Oolu Solar.
Okay, and before you say it, we have to celebrate it. Ready? Say it again. $8.5 million.
Yay!
All right, that's a big deal. $8.5 million.
It is a big deal.
Yes.
In the
It
middle
is.
of a pandemic, in the middle of a
Exactly.
recession. So
Exactly.
fantastic work, guys. So Dan, tell us about it, and what is that money going to mean for you guys? And for people in West Africa.
I would say there are three main uses here. First of all, the investment allows us to continue investing in our software platform and developing better operational processes to serve existing customers. We work in over 25 states in Nigeria, so providing great customer service is not an easy endeavor, but is obviously critical for us and our customers and our business model. Second of all, we're planning to invest in a new range of solar solutions which can power more appliances, because we recognize that our current product range with lighting, fan, television needs to be grown to ensure that households and businesses across the country can save money with solar while also benefiting the environment. And third, we want to be able to leverage additional debt capital to provide attractive financing plans for our customers, because we recognize that making a major cash investment in a product, as Wiebe said, in the middle of a pandemic, that a potential customer may not have used in the past is a challenge, and we want to ensure that our pricing plans are properly adapted to people's needs.
Brilliant. So still tell us, what are some of the major milestones Oolu has recorded in Nigeria, and how will these investment deals today signed help achieve more? Doseke? Over to you now.
You were staring at Dan's screen, so I thought maybe you were
Right. I anybody actually. I thought Dan wanted to answer, but Doseke, let's go.
So I think one of what we've been able to accomplish is that we've built the company from ground zero to a position where we're one of the top 3 SHS players in the country, and we've done this in less than 3 years.
Awesome.
And we've been able to compete with people that have spent significant amount of time in the space, not just in East Africa but also in West Africa, and yet we've been able to come into the market to be able to create a position for ourselves. So we've been able to do that in less than 3 years, and we want to be able to build on that. So the investment that we're getting is going to allow us continue on this growth trajectory and objectives so that we can grow horizontally but also vertically. I think those would be the key milestones that we have accomplished, and going forward we'll want to build on that as well.
So good. So Dan, let's go now to you to look at a regional view. I think across the region you've sold about 60,000 solar home systems in some pretty difficult markets. So just and you have a proprietary management platform and distribution network. So maybe tell us a little bit about that, and then also why you've been able to achieve success in so many different markets, and do you learn from one and then bring that to the next, and how does that kind of work?
Sure. I mean, our software platform is a means to an end, which is to deliver high quality service to our customers. Developing this technology in-house has allowed us to build a platform and app which works for us, and allows us to introduce customizations based on different regions or customer segments or markets, which I think alludes to your second question. Although, of course, there are tons more features we plan to roll out over the coming years. In terms of unit sales, we've been successful in selling many thousands of solar products to customers across West Africa since 2015. But for us, there's so much more work to be done. When you look at the tens of millions of households and small businesses that that lack access to affordable energy and power supply. This is really the ambition that drives us. I think, just in terms of our work in not only Nigeria, but Senegal and Mali and a few of our other countries of operation, I think we've found the right balance between centralizing in terms of product, et cetera, which allows us to control for quality, but also introducing differentiation between our countries of operation so that we can target specific opportunities when they arise. And this, for instance, in Nigeria, allows us to be very responsive to market demand in terms of new products or pricing or whatever that may be. And then I think also the fact that that we're headquartered in Dakar, so we're all relatively close together, although it feels like we're far away in the COVID context. So I think there are a lot of different elements there.
Doseke, I really love your name, honestly. I really do love it. So tell us why, in your view, is the renewable energy sector one of that the young African entrepreneurs ought to be encouraged to enter?
So I think from the renewable energy sector is still at its formative stage. I mean, when you look at the market potential versus what we've accomplished,
Right.
there's still a lot of work to be done. So there's opportunity there, and I think every young entrepreneur should be looking at that. The second point is that the barrier to entry vis-a-vis other established sectors such as the financial services, telecoms, oil and gas, manufacturing, is not as steep that it discourages creativity and enthusiasm. In other words, if you're smart and you come have creative ideas, the sector welcomes and needs you. So that's something that I think it's worth every young African entrepreneur looking at. The other issue is that power still remains a challenge. We haven't met our power needs, and I'm not sure that we're going to meet those power needs in the near future. There's still increased demand in the sector for higher capacity products, and as long as there's still a gap, there's an opportunity for any young entrepreneur that wants to come in. And the other point is, if you look at the value chain in terms of technology, manufacturing, the bulk of it is still done outside Africa. So, for example, we source the majority of our products, from Asia.
Okay.
And so our hope is that, we want the young entrepreneur to be able to, that is in touch with their community, that understands their community, that understands the gaps, to be able to come up with ideas to solve those problems. So that is why I'm excited about it. I think the young African entrepreneur can play a significant role in addressing these needs. And so that's why I'm excited and optimistic about the sector.
Great. Okay.
Can I
But you
ask
were-
another
yeah, please.
question? Okay. All right. So Dan, we'll go back to you.
Right.
So the recent PwC report stated that there's about 17 million small businesses in Nigeria. Obviously, a vast majority of those are very small businesses. But you do have a mass market product. I mean, when you hear numbers like that, what does that mean for you as the kind of group CEO? Like, is it daunting? Is it exciting? What does that tell you? What does that say to you?
It's an enormous challenge and an enormous opportunity for the sector. For many or the majority of these SMEs, their energy needs are still not being met or not met adequately, and this provides an opportunity for them to access decentralized solar products, for which they can pay over time, and at the end they're owners of. So I think for a lot of small businesses, being able to pay for a product and purchase a product and reduce that expense on a monthly basis is really appealing. And then, of course, with the fact that we've seen some recent rises in petrol prices and potentially grid tariffs in Nigeria, again, these businesses are looking for options in terms of power supply. And I think it's a very bright future for the industry in regards to this potential.
Okay.
Okay, awesome, awesome. Right, so Doseke, over to you. I think we have a bond in the show. Oh, the one asking you a question. Right, so among the numerous challenges the Nigerian faces, you've made mention of electricity, power, and all of that. So how is this sector positioned to address this? How is Oolu positioned to address all of this?
Okay, so I mean, if you look at some of the challenges, like you mentioned, manufacturing, I think first it's important to recognize that countries who have differentiated themselves and have developed a competitive advantage as a country in manufacturing, such as, Malaysia, China, Vietnam, it took time for them to develop these competencies and to develop these sectors. And it requires purposeful and deliberate actions over a period of time, over a period of years, by the government, by stakeholders to want to develop these sectors, number one. I think, secondly, IP remains a key factor, intellectual property. So for every manufacturing you do, there's a technology or there's an intellectual property behind it. And so we need to be saying, how can we create an enabling environment so that the young African that has this idea, doesn't sell it outside the country, but there is an environment, there's a channel, there's a process for taking those ideas and making them viable businesses. And I think one of the things that Allon does really well is the incubator program that is started. I think this is a great opportunity for young entrepreneurs that have these ideas to come in and, get those ideas and tested as viable business opportunities.
Brilliant.
And then the reality is we source, again, like I said, the majority of our products internationally, and we hope to partner, in future with Nigerian firms to reduce these expenses that we make in terms of products that are manufactured outside. And we're particularly excited to be part of part of Allon, especially with some of the investee companies, such as Oxano. They do PV manufacturing. So we're excited to be part of the Allon family so we can begin to tap into those connections and synergies within the sector.
Great.
All right, great. Well, I know we're about to be kicked off.
Right.
So Dan, final words from you. Maybe just a few things about the other investors involved, and then and also why has renewable energy thrived so much in this difficult time, and how does the next year or two look for the sector?
Sure. Well, yeah, we've got a great group of investors, of course, all out in Nigeria, but also RP Global, an independent power producer based in Austria, Gaia Impact Fund in France, current investors, Persistent Energy Capital, and a few others. So we're excited to work with this group moving forward. I think just in terms of the context, it's been a really tough year for everyone. Personally, professionally, we all know people that have suffered losses personally or have had friends or family lose jobs or their businesses. I think we've been lucky in the sector, primarily because we sell products and provide service that meet a critical need.
Right.
Every person and business needs a constant, reliable power supply, and they've been willing to invest in solar even during difficult economic times. I think during the lockdown as well. I mean, everyone is home, so you want to keep the lights on. But look, I mean, we're still in the middle of this pandemic, and obviously in a really challenging time in terms of the economic recession in Nigeria. So, we wish all the best to everyone listening, and of course hope that we in the sector can continue to meet the needs of folks in Nigeria.
Thank you very much, Dan. We appreciate you. Dr. Wiebe?
All right. So Dan and Doseke, thanks for the awesome show today. I think
you.
it's been very informative. And again, congratulations on the big capital raise. And, I know that in the end, the impact that will be felt will be remarkable and substantial. So thank you for coming on today, and good luck with everything.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks very much.
Bye-bye.
You're welcome. And on that note, What's Up Lagos have come to an end. I will be back in the studio tomorrow. My name is Nata, your microphone baby girl, still holding it down for Collins Teke. Up next is the news at noon. It's 99.3 Nigeria Info. Stick around.
99.3 Nigeria Info. We are more than just radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Nigeria Info FM. Check us out on Facebook at Nigeria Info 99.3. Follow us on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM and on Instagram at Nigeria Info FM Lagos for live updates as it happens. 99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk.